We thought it was part of our journalistic and potentially moral responsibility to weigh in on the 34 felony counts that former President Trump has found himself in possession of today. Maybe one of the things that he wishes he owned the least would be these guilty verdicts, one might say. I'm going to kick to you, Pete. Give us our first shovel of news on this one.
The funniest thing about this news is that it is historic. It is mind-boggling. It is startling. It's a lot of different things, but also just because of Trump, and I'm going to come back to this point a couple of times today, but just because it is Trump, it also is funny. You can't quite take it seriously, and it is just like it falls under the category of entertainment rather than politics. I remember back in the day when Huffington Post said that in 2016 that they weren't going to cover him as a politician, they were going to cover him as an entertainer. Like, everyone got mad at them for that, but it also was kind of like the most, like actually brilliant thing, because the whole time he's been doing this whole thing, he has been an entertainer more than a politician. And even though like his followers don't quite admit that, but like I feel like they know it as well. Just, do you know what I'm saying? So like, even though it is a big political story, and now all of a sudden like America has suddenly prosecuted a former president, etc., it still seems like, there are tweets going out from for people saying like, former star of Home Alone 2 just found guilty on 73 counts, shit like that. And like
fat New Yorker found guilty.
And this is why I am going to be somewhat lighthearted about this topic today. I mean, if you're coming here for hard-hitting news, this is not necessarily
you came to the wrong place.
Although I do want to actually have this one serious conversation today, and maybe we can lead with this. Maybe, possibly.
Hold on.
Is about the implications for the election, because that's real, and maybe we can talk about that a little bit.
That is real. I'm super down after I have my fun with this.
Okay. To get into, I don't want to spoil your fun because
to get into serious debate, but there's enough fun to be had for just a moment. I'm gonna drop a bomb on you right now, Pete. I'm going to world premiere a term that I am coining right now, and I call it the Trump Canny Valley.
Ooh,
okay.
I'm liking it already.
The concept of the uncanny valley in film is like when something computer generated approximates, like human movement so efficiently, but not quite. It just falls short of giving you the convincing your meat suit that you're looking at another meat suit. And I think Trump has the Trump Canny Valley between entertainment and politics, where it's like, it you know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of just ever so gently out of whack with either side of anything, that he just slides like a fucking greased turd, dude. He
Not
just
to
slips.
Completely belabor the point or go into too many details about it, but it is absolutely him specifically too. We've had plenty of people who were entertainers who went into politics, Schwarzenegger, Reagan, etc. Like, there's been a lot of people who did that, but the second they took office, they wore that suit and they played that role. Trump can't play a serious person role. He just can't do it.
He can only play himself. He's a real one-trick pony, dude.
This actually segues into one of my serious points that I want to make, so I'll go ahead and throw it out there.
Oh, please.
So the fact that Donald Trump can't be taken seriously, and the fact that he is just like an entertainer, this is kind of good news. And I kind of want to explain what I mean by this. Is that like everyone has their hot takes about how like we need to really consider the implications of this, right? Like, what does this mean that all of a sudden we normalized prosecuting politicians?
Yeah, I was once one of those people.
It's not a bad point, and I've said this before too at some level, but like, here's the reason why I've come to think that that's absolutely not true, just specifically for Trump, because Trump is in every way an outlier. And if you look at even just, we all already like contrasted him from former entertainers, right? But like, contrast him from other would-be wackadoos in the Republican Party. They never draw the sort of a fan base, let's say it, that Trump does, they always overstep boundaries to the point where like their absurdity is no longer funny, and it's like, oh my God, what did you just say? You know, Marjorie Taylor Greene with like the space lasers, etc. And Trump can also like speak out of both sides of his mouth. Like he's very good at what he does. Other people just can't. No one can fill those shoes. And so like I don't actually think that the slippery slope argument works just because he is so fundamentally an outlier.
Singular.
And I know for a fact Republicans are going to try some of this shit on Democrats. Like they've already tried to impeach Biden because we did it to Trump, etc. But like it automatically just doesn't work because like you got to get somebody on something at some. There has to be some meat there, or else it just goes away. And so like all those impeachment things just like disappeared from the news and didn't go anywhere. It's getting the same thing if someone tries to like bring a criminal charge against. Like Hunter Biden's gonna go down for some crimes, like because he committed crimes, like who cares? same with Trump. Like I know that this is the dumbest trial, the Stormy Daniels trial. I know it's the dumbest one, but he did it. Like everyone, like the facts of the case, he did it. I know it's like a overly complex case, etc. But like, okay.
Getting a panel of people to convict Donald Trump of something was something that, in my mind, I had entered like a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy-esque, dream sequence where I'm like, this guy's probability of getting in trouble for anything is somehow shrinking every second that he's alive. Like he is an unfindable speck on like the culpability map. You know what I mean? Like it was unbelievable to me just that he finally got fucking nailed for something, man. I'm like, dude, there's been so much good evidence that he's done bad things for so long, and it's like, oh man, can I just tell you that one of my supreme joys in life is gonna be over the next week watching Republicans twist themselves into the most obscene fucking shapes to find a way to not acknowledge this. You know what I mean? And
there have been so many good memes, Evan. I'm sure you've seen some of them, but a lot of them are like, it's like an angry cartoon, and it's like lock her up, lock her up, lock her up, and then like for 2016 and like 2020, like lock him up for Joe Biden, and then the second like Trump is actually like indicted for something, and like found guilty, they're like, we should really think about actually criminalizing a politician, and it's like y'all are just hypocrites and you're just stupid, and like. You can't even take yourself seriously.
It's going to be high comedy, like truly over the next week to watch people who are like, let me throw one out there for you. This is going to be a little bit of a disjointed a rabble, because I'm sure we're both we've got a lot to say. But do you think that this will actually make it to every single place in the country where they don't know that Trump is maybe on trial for something criminal right now? Because I almost guarantee you that there are tens of millions of American Trump supporters that didn't even know that he was in court for something serious.
Yeah, no, I think that it's always unbelievable how many people are just not listening to any news at all. At all. And I know a lot of people like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's right. It is also interesting because if you were to just log onto Twitter or social media, you would think, oh my God, this is going to backfire for Democrats so hard. Biggest mistake ever. Because everyone is saying that. But like on both sides of the aisle, everyone is saying like, oh my God, what did we do? Or like, yes, this is the best thing that's happening to Trump ever. Like everyone, but everyone is just talking to themselves saying this. Specifically on social media, I was just looking up the polls on this, and this is interesting. So all the polls that have come out aren't saying that. Like they're saying basically kind of the opposite. So here's a paragraph from the New York Times. This was today. In the New York Times, the failing New York Times, Siena College battleground polls in October found that 7% of Trump supporters said that they would vote for Biden if Trump were found guilty in an unspecified criminal trial. This may not seem like a huge number, but anything like it would be decisive in our era of close elections.
Extremely.
And then says, much more recently, a Marquette Law School poll taken during the hush money trial found that a modest lead for Trump among registered voters nationwide became a 4-point Biden lead if Trump were found guilty.
Mm-hmm.
That's one data point. One more, or those are 2 data points, and one more is that recent polling. This is Ian Brimmer tweeted this, how Americans say Trump's hush money convictions would impact their votes. This is an NPR PBS Marist poll, and it says 15% more likely to vote for Trump, 17% less likely to vote for Trump, and 67% makes no difference. So all the polling is basically saying not great for Trump. You know, like Republicans are fundamentally kind of the party of law and order, and like they don't want to necessarily vote for this, I think.
Can I just say too, can we all just hearken ourselves back to the early 90s when Bill Clinton got impeached for getting his dick sucked? I mean, are we so far removed from that level of moralism as a country where it's like, yeah, I don't know, maybe in our polyamorous, maybe in our polyamorous sex dungeon of a fucking modern culture, dude, we don't care anymore. But I'd like to think that if a guy had an affair with a lady and then used his political campaign money to pay her 6 figures to shut the fuck up about it, I would like to think that we're probably, as a group, as a country, as disjointed as I feel from the opinions of certain modern Americans, I'd like to think that in a not unlike Bill Clinton-esque way, we can all come together over the idea that Donald Trump should not be president after doing something that was morally heinous, that poor woman, and then fucking did something illegal to cover it up. And it's all just like pretty morally repugnant stuff. Like there's nothing defensible. He wasn't protecting the country. You know what I mean?
People say that, you know, for Republicans, they knew what they were getting into bed with Trump. Like they knew all along that he was not a saint.
We're in a post grab the pussy. We're in a post just grab them by the pussy world.
Yeah, so the idea is we don't want him because he's perfect. We want him because he's going to shove down the throats of Democrats the things that the Democrats don't want, and that he's like our guy on the team. I do want to take on one more topic here regarding Trump. Is that so? I want to get your thoughts on the criticism that I think is valid, that this case was a very novel case, as everyone says. And it basically wouldn't have happened if this guy's name wasn't Donald Trump. It was a case that it's kind of like a very like monster case. It's very messy and like convoluted because they had to, you know, the federal government already declined to take this on as a case. And then they made it a state level case, but it wasn't a felony. So they had to like cobble different pieces together to make it a felony. But they only did that because he's Trump. I mean, you know, there is some reality there. And I think that we should totally acknowledge it. And I think that this case did kind of start out political. And I have thoughts on this. But yeah, let me get your thoughts on it first to see if you have any strong opinions here.
Yeah, I agree, but I also think there's a world in which like some small journalist team like finds something like this about, you know, some state level politician and actually does do the work to take that person down. Like using the blatant criminality of it's such a cartoonish case. It's like it's like a cartoon Batman plot, like for like a villain or something. Like you did something wrong, you paid them off with money that you weren't supposed to use. Like it's like, dude, it's really cartoonishly simple.
The story is quite simple, and that's actually a powerful thing. This is actually you're kind of getting actually around to my point, which is that so I did go to law school. I do have a law degree. I've read a lot of cases, so I do have a little bit of a knowledge base here. The law is all made up. It's all fiction. All laws, even very, very straightforward laws, we just made that shit up. And it all starts with a story. This is actually what I loved about law school. When you're reading cases, you're reading the story, and then
the first time it happened.
At the end of the story, the judge makes a determination.
Oh, interesting.
And then they make a law based on that determination, and then that law is passed down, and that's case law. And that's like the bulk of American law is just like responding to stories, things that happened. And so like everyone is getting like really frustrated with just exactly what I just said, that this case is, Michael Moynihan, I think, called it a dog's breakfast of a case, which is pretty good. And then it is, right? But like the story of it is very simple. And just because we don't have a very simple law to apply to this thing, it's like in Germany, right? How they have like a complex word to describe a simple thing, but we have to write a paragraph to accommodate that thing. This is that paragraph. We're just articulating the paragraph. Just because we don't have that one German word that just fits this particular thing, but the particular thing is bad, and we all kind of know it. We all kind of know he shouldn't be doing this, and we all kind of know he should at some level be punished by a criminal court because of the thing that he did. We just don't have that one word, and so we have to cobble together a messy dog's breakfast.
Gruner, Trump and Stofflin waffle.
So that's my take, and that is my response. I do think that it's a credible critique of this case, and this case is just not the most serious thing. Like, and I don't think Trump is gonna see jail time because of this case. But
I can't imagine that he would.
I don't know. It's like, dude he has been begging and pleading the world to arrest him and throw his ass in jail for years and years and years, way before he became a politician. He's been begging people to put him in jail. He's done so much shady shit and done it way out in the open, and just basically said, y'all can't arrest me because I'm too powerful. That's like his thing, right? And
like, you know what else his thing?
He's been right up until now, and now like it's karma at some level.
I would love to just shine a light on the central irony of all of this, if I may, that like his whole platform is about political corruption.
Yes.
Okay. His whole platform is about drain the swamp, these corrupt politicians. Do you know what political corruption looks like? It looks like using money that you're supposed to use for your political campaign for your personal stuff. That's the definition of political corruption. There is no Oh my God, there is no more concise definition of political corruption than funneling money from your political organization to your personhood. Every time he's made fun of like a shithole country, every time he is talked shit about the politicians in this country, that's actually what he's talking about. That's what he's referring to. And sometimes he's right when he's talking about a country that is a kleptocracy, where what's happening is plenty of resources and money are flowing through this country, but at every different level, it's being siphoned off. And when you're at the top of the chain and you're the big funnel and you're siphoning shit off of the very top, brother, that is political corruption. Like, you gotta go. You don't get to be here anymore for all these different reasons. But chief among those reasons is that your very existence is antithetical to your stated set of beliefs as a politician. You have failed your personal standard, and you've failed the country. And it's pathetic and it's disgusting. And you shouldn't be allowed to run for office because that is political corruption. That's what we do not need in this country.
It would be really nice if people would not vote for a guy who fits this profile. And I kind of like pray to God I never find myself so enraptured with some politician that I would vote for him despite flaws of this nature. And here's the thing. I would absolutely vote for a Republican. I'd vote for an independent. I would vote for anybody. Like, I don't like, at some level, I just want an adult. And I used to say this about when we watched the Republican debates. I would just say, like, let's just for a second now, everyone has policies within the range of semi-respectability, minus Vivek, perhaps. But like, it's all policies that some broad swath of Americans can sign up for, even if I don't necessarily agree with them. And I just kind of want the adult. And so like, even this is like gross to say, and like I'm gonna take a shower after saying this, but like I was at one point watching the Republican debates, looking at like Mike Pence and Nikki Haley and being like, I could see them shaking hands with the foreign leader and not like cringing and dying because of it. Just because they hold themselves professionally, they speak professionally, they do at some level listen to constituencies of the American people, even though they are people who don't hold my values, they are still Americans. Like mega red, gun-toting, abortion-hating people are still Americans. And like, I don't agree with those values, but I'm not going to say that like they shouldn't have a vote and they shouldn't have a voice. And if they happen to be the majority of the country, guess what? The majority rules. That's what democracy is. And I'm so okay with that, right? Yeah. I would like to hear Republicans who are enamored with Trump articulate something of that nature. And I have never heard them do anything even remotely like that. It's all like, it's all just unthoughtful hate from like the gut towards anybody that's deemed by their name. And it's very stupid. It's just stupid.
Yeah. Well, but it's, it's so interesting because, again, I think I always come back to this point with Trump, which is the thing that I will give him every day of the week, which is that he knows how to speak to people who are under and uneducated, and in a way that every other part of our society works to make people feel stupid that aren't educated. And that's a shame. As an educated person, I don't feel that. But like, I have friends and I've had really close relationships with people who have been on the beating end of that stick of being made to feel unintelligent in society, in polite society. And it's fucked up. And there's no politicians that we've had other than George W. Bush Jr. over the last 50 years that have been able to speak to that collective of kind of and undereducated Americans, and Trump does that. And he's funny, and that's part of it, is that humor is it can be a blunt object, you know what I mean? But he does speak to those people, and like, we won't have success in this country broadly, like a good successful coalition on both sides, until somebody in the Democratic Party or somebody in a more centered position in the Republican Party learns how to speak in 4-letter words. You know what I mean? It's like, Obama was cool, but damn, he was hard to understand. Biden's cool.
I disagree. Like, Biden was actually pretty easy to understand, I think, for the most part.
Biden's not too bad.
Very simply, yeah.
Biden's not
very
too bad.
Slowly.
And
I think
it's a shame.
Actually, like, interestingly,
you're right.
I think the Republicans say that he can't speak to them just because seriously they didn't like what he said.
Yeah,
kind of
I think you're right.
It goes to my point, because like he actually never, like I've even said this before. We have it in our brains that he was so hard to listen to and so etc. But like,
I think you're so
I don't think
right
he was.
That.
I think that we just even bought into the meme that like, yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more, because when you really think about it, the people that Biden speaks to, how many dudes do you know like that? Like old guys that are just like, come on, man, just be reasonable.
Come on, man.
Be reasonable, man. And that's like hella boomers. Like the good boomers are like Biden, where they're just kind of like out of it, but they're like, fucking come on.
This is a point that Destiny makes every now and then that I think is a good point, is that like Biden, it doesn't even matter what he does or says or how mellow he is. He can do the most innocuous thing. Like, remember he gave that one speech with like, it was red behind him or something like that. It was like, oh my God, it's a dictator. Rah! And people like rage for weeks, like Tim Pool and everybody raged for weeks about how he was a dictator now because like there was a red background behind him. It's
meanwhile,
people,
Trump's
I just
like,
cannot take those people seriously.
Meanwhile, Trump's like, he's like, this country kind of needs a dictator. Not saying that I would be that. Not saying that I would be that guy, but and it's like everybody's like, give him a break, man. Like, no, stop giving him breaks, man. Be about him if you want to be about him, but stop giving him breaks.
Okay, so I want to get your thoughts on what do you, maybe polls aside.
Okay.
A lot of articles right now about like, forget about the polls. This is the article you should read about what's going to happen and what this means. Like literally headlines like that are being written right now. So let's pretend to be those authors. What do you think, polls aside, this means for the country? Trump being found guilty and being sentenced next month, and then the election in November. What do you think?
Oh boy, when you play it out in your head, you can see it going both ways, right? You can see that like a month between now and sentencing is a lot of time to get people stirred up. And people went and they went to Washington D.C. last time. I mean, that was a different climate politically and like socially. People were very, it was right after COVID. People were really agitated. It was really easy to get people frustrated.
And so, do you think like violence is going to happen? Tim Pool, just to play on his game, he tweeted after this happened, "War." Period. That was it.
Oh, very nice, Tim. Come on, buddy. Like,
not good.
As a, also, here's what I want to see. Let me just take a small aside. As I would like to see the thought leaders in this country having thoughts that lead. Like, that's so pathetic. Like, war. It's like, hey, dude, people actually pay attention to your opinion. So why don't you fucking take the time to have
Trump
one?
Was on Tim Pool last week, speaking of, or maybe this week. So yeah, he actually is a thought leader. I immediately was like, he's a thought leader, but like, you're right. Yeah.
Whether people like it or not, it's like, take responsibility for your flock, dude. Fucking say things that matter to people if you have a voice. But that aside, boy, it really, I mean, maybe, it depends on how effective we watch culture as an organism now. And so it's like, we're going to watch the reflexive kind of like gestures of our culture over the next month, and we're going to see if it creates a convulsion in the organism or if it's just a shudder.
That is actually very interesting. Can I play on that? Because that was getting very closely to my point.
Please.
I think that however this is going to play out, it depends completely on literally the articles that are written, the conversations people have, and like the facts almost don't matter. It's how people talk about it. It's gonna be the thing that matters. Because here's what happens. This is like the people in the middle who haven't by some chance made up their mind or might flip the vote or whatever, or might not show up to vote or might show up to vote, etc.
Mm-hmm.
They are just like going to do the thing that they think is appropriate based on their social group. This is just like human behavior. And like, if you think that your social group is like gonna think that you're a moron if you don't vote for Trump, or if you do vote for Trump, that's the determining factor. And your social group is going to be determined by like these screaming matches on Twitter, or the articles in the New York Times, or just like this commentary, or it's going to be people who don't pay attention to any news, and then they just see one little thing, one little teeny tiny headline, Trump was found guilty of a felony, and then like for them, their commentary, as it were, is just like their life experience of like, a felon shouldn't run for president, what? And then that's gonna be their determination. But yeah, I think that like even little conversations like the one we're having now, this is gonna be,
they matter, man.
What matters, it's
how we exactly. It's so funny that you'd say that, because the moment that I was thinking of as I'm saying that is where like kind of an older, maybe like a boomer or even like an older Gen Xer, they're kind of talking about it. They're somewhere in their kind of social circle at a restaurant or a coffee shop or something like that, and one of them brings it up, and and they're Trump supporters, right? And they go to each other, and one of them goes, did you hear about the court case? They're kind of nervous to bring it up, right? Because it's like, oh, how's this gonna play? This is pretty serious. Like, I'm tossing a real chunk of meat out to the shark right now. See, is it gonna get a bite? And the other person goes to them, yeah, I know. And that's it, right? It's like, it's not, the spell is broken. It's not just, fuck those liberals, we got our guy. It's just a fucking brief second of like, yeah, I know, right? Like, that's kind of crazy, right? That he did, like, he got convicted of but he's still our boy. If that's the moment, then he loses. Because I think Trump depends on... No one
wants to be the guy who in their community is like, who'd you vote for? Oh, Trump. Well, you voted for a felon? Really? No one wants to be like, yes, I did. Like, no, we all want to, like,
And even if it just Trump relies on a spell
He does.
And
Yeah,
he's
good
so excellent at continuing the song. He just never takes a set break, you know? He just continues weaving the song, and it's a narrative that people can just pick up and eat like manna in the desert, dude. You know what I mean? Like, it just shows up on the floor every day, you know, and they just got to pick it up and eat it. And what I think potentially in the most likely scenario will happen is that now they're going to go to gather that manna in the morning, and every couple days it's going to be either not there or it's going to taste crazy. And they're going to be like, this isn't the just add water narrative that I fucking signed up for, dude. Give me something, give me Soylent, man. Like, feed me something simpler than this. This is making my tummy hurt, you know, because at the end of the day, that's what his main cohort, like, they are the moving id when it comes to politics. But let me say this. I want to say this because I actually get these people. The thing that all the democratic society gets wrong is they think that these people are just a moving id because they are living life on some like more primal level. It's not the case. They just mostly do jobs that take most of their time. And like, part of liberal society has obsessed itself with excavating people from the 40-hour work week at a minimum wage that just pays for life. Well, guess what, man? Whether we like it or not, Republican states haven't really focused on that yet, and Republicans as a cohort haven't managed to pull the vast majority of their people out of wage slavery. And so when a lot of these people are making political decisions, it's with the 5 minutes that they have after the hard-ass day of work they did and tending to their traditional style family that keeps this country economically afloat and keeps growth alive in our country and keeps us having like an armed services that is operational and enthusiastic. Like, dude, these people do a million jobs for our country, and they need to be spoken to simply, not because they're stupid, but because they don't have time to over intellectualize a whole subset of their life. So I just want to say that, man, like, I think that bears repeating, that like Republicans and people who think like Trump and people who want Trump to win are not necessarily stupid people, but by and large, they're people with not a lot of fucking extra time.
Yeah, there was a lot there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree. That was very. What was that book? Rural White Rage. That was a very anti-that book take. Did you see
really?
that? Did you see that book come out?
No, but I could believe. I just from the title, I already can fucking grok like half that book.
Yeah, so like there was this book. I'm gonna get some of this wrong probably, but there was a book that came out a couple months ago called Rural White Rage, something like that. And it was all about like, who are these people? And it's written by like a New Yorker. Like, who are these people who they are very racist. They're very bad. They're very like, you know, they're bad Americans, etc. And it was very like scoldy, these people. And then it turns out that like so many just actual factual details were completely wrong in this book. And so it ended up being, I mean, just not only like a scar on the liberal media, as it were, but it's also just like embarrassing that anyone even published this. And then it was embarrassing for the authors because everyone was like, I don't think that you should, like, you're wrong. And dude should have interviewed you, you know, before that book came out, because you just articulated that.
All you partisan motherfuckers are gonna have a real tough time when those 30,000 Chinese national sleeper cells activate next year, dude. We're gonna be a very together country real quick.
That's right. All right. Hey man, well we'll be paying attention. It will be very interesting. It's gonna be a ride.
Pete,
cool, man.
What
right.
do you have anything else to toss my way? Because I got one last one for you.
No, shoot.
What's your give me your like in a bow Easter basket thought on Trump in this trial. I think I wax philosophical a lot. You entertain my philosophical musings, but you're pretty good at kind of getting things down to a concise place. What do you think, man? Like, what's your fucking elevator take of this trial and this guilty verdict?
Oh boy. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's unfortunate that it happened. I really kind of do. I kind of wish this was not the trial that went forward. I wish one of the 3 other ones did. The fact that it happened, the fact that the gears started turning, though, and the fact that they got, 12 jurors to sit there for, several weeks. And then I think that was justice being served. And it's not like I feel bad for Trump at all, because I think that this trial necessarily wasn't the one that should have gone forward. It's the classic, like, Al Capone thing. Is that, like, if you live your life so spitting in the face of a rule of law, eventually it's going to get you, and it may not get you for the most ideal reason. It might be some, like,
tax fraud,
very technical tax fraud sort of thing, or some very stupid tabloidy story or whatever. But I don't know. I know that there are flaws in the case. I know all the things, all the criticisms. But the second that it did get running and turning, and the second that, like, an actual jury of his peers, the jury could, if this case was literally nothing, if it made no sense and the pieces didn't tie together at all, 12 people, including 2 of the jurors, were lawyers, and one of the jurors said that his primary source of news was Truth Social.
That guy was hard. That guy was a holdout for a minute, dude. He was like, I don't know. Everybody was like, dude.
I don't know. Like, I don't know. The justice system on many levels is kind of, like, silly and partisan and not always fair. And I think that, like, all told, it's just totally kind of sort of meant to be. Even in hindsight, it's going to feel very appropriate. I think that this happened. It's going to be like everyone 20 years from now is going to be like, and then they got Trump on that, and, like, yeah, it's kind of silly, but, like, he had it coming, right? Yeah, he had it coming. There's going to be a lot of that. There's not going to be a lot of American democracy.
It's going to be a real OJ.
Because of this. Yeah.
It's going to be a real OJ scenario where there's going to be, like, a contingent of people that are always going to be like, he didn't do it. But in polite society, it's taken as fact that he did do it.
Well, everyone knows he did it, right?
Everyone knows he did it, but some people are, for their own reasons, are like, but he's innocent, though.
It's just gonna be interesting because it's gonna play all ways. It's gonna make a lot of people vote who wouldn't have voted. It's going to make a lot of Trump supporters maybe violent, and it's going to make them very angry. It's also going to bring some Democrats out to the polls. It's going to play all ways, and it's just going to, the thing that's going to matter is how that all balances out on one day and whether people show up. And there's a lot of people on Twitter being like, even people I follow and people I like, who are, I'm just going to sit this election out because I can't vote for this guy and I can't vote for that guy. And I think that that's just unfortunate. And here's my pitch to that perspective is just like, there's not just 2 guys. There's a lot of people running. Like, I interviewed a guy on this channel who's a transhumanist on the Transhumanist Party. Vote for him, participate, because, like, the worst thing is just that bottom line number of all the Americans who just, like, sit elections out. Don't sit it out. Just vote for somebody. Fill in your mom's name. You know what I mean? I think that, like, it's just embarrassing that Americans are so willy-nilly about elections, and we just don't take them seriously.
Insane.
It's that basic fundamental shit that is, like, ultimately at the end of the day the things that are the most important. And I think that just participating is the important thing.
It's critical.
That's my pitch.
I love it. I think that's it. I think that's critical. I think you should get taxed at a higher rate if you don't vote. I think that would be a sick incentive. You get like a 5%, something significant.
No,
something that would fuck
disagree.
you if you
Dude,
didn't do it.
I'm going to disagree with this. I think that we need a culture. Yeah, we need a culture that just encourages people to vote. There should be no incentive. The fact that you are that so many people are willing to die to come to this country still.
A return to 50s style civics, dude.
Yeah, it's like we need a culture shift that it just becomes it's normal and people are proud to vote. That's what we need.
I love it. Yeah.
And I think incentives would actually be counterproductive with that.
Oh, interesting. I'm just saying if you don't vote, you should have some thing taken away from you that this country gives you, basically for you should have to sit with your decision and think about it all year. Like, damn it, I am going to vote next year, dude. The cops only come 90% of the time for me.
I think I'm still holding out in the sense that, like, I think, like, as a an American, I'm all about, like, the government not putting its finger on me as much as possible. So I'm gonna be like,
fair.
if they came after me, that would actually be my reason not to vote, as like a protest against being made to vote. You know what I mean?
That's what makes this country great, Pete.
All right. Well, we'll wrap it up there.